Our next artist is Sandy Early. She's a ceramicist and a clay artist living in Wishkah, Grace Harbor County, Washington. Take it away, Sandy.
I've been a potter in the Western United States for more than 40 years. So I know lots of people. And I actually worked for NCECA for a while. So if I want to find a gas kiln and fire something, I can usually, make that happen. But for now, the electric kiln is fine. And I'm not your age anymore. So it's time for me to look at things a little realistically and realize that having a huge gas kiln and having to load it and fire it at my age is really not, it's probably not smart. And it's also, it's just a daunting task. So I'm happy to fire cone 6 and make all my own glazes. And I've been selling work for, like I said, more than 40 years. So, yeah.
Now, if I've got some students in class who are, really interested in ceramics and they want to either practice ceramics regularly or maybe think about it as a career, do you have any advice for them?
Go apprentice someplace. The University of Washington has an absolutely fabulous ceramics department, but so does Tacoma Community College. And I'm not real familiar with what goes on in Olympia, but clay-wise. But I know those two programs really well. I spent 12 years living in Tacoma, so that's why I'm more familiar with that. But yeah, and then, and also, I would also tell any of your students that they can contact me at any point, and I would be more than glad to talk to them about whatever it is. And I actually take people on and do little apprenticeships here. So, that's a possibility too.
Great, that's really good to know. So, Sandy, within ceramics, where has your work taken you? What do you focus on? Do you lean to the technical side? Do you lean to the conceptual side? Do you juggle those at the same time? Sort of, where do your interests lie within ceramics?
Well, I think that my interest in ceramics is I think that my interest in ceramics is that it is always a challenge, and I enjoy that in my life. And because there are so many variables with clay that you have to get good. And I am not. I'm kind of a stickler for having nice pots. You need to learn your trade and you need to learn your craft. And to do that, you have to be tenacious with clay because you don't sit down and make a masterpiece. You have to learn the clay, you have to learn the glazes, you have to learn the firing. There's a lot to learn. So you have to be willing to put in the time and the love of clay to make it happen. So my tendency is that I try to make really nice pots, and I love to make raku pots. I always tell people I make slightly functional pots. If you work really, really hard, you can put something in them. But with raku, you can't eat out of it, and you just pretty much look at it. So it's very sculptural, and the design comes from nature. And from figure drawing. I love to figure draw, and I love to draw, and I love trees, and I love leaves and all of that, and it's reflected in my artwork. I did a series of busts that I used that are great big 24-inch tall torsos that I call real women, and I did a series of them that were pregnant. I did a series of them that looked like they were just towels wrapped around people. I did a series that looked like, they're women that are actually, look like they could be fertile, and that they could be a vessel and contain things. And they can not only contain things like another human being, but they can contain love, and they can contain purpose, and they can contain, all of the elements of being feminine. And so I did a series like that. I tend to work in series. I am probably pretty well known for the fact that every time I go out to work with clay, I pick up a piece of clay and I make a pinch pot. So I probably make thousands of pinch pots every year. And some of them get decorated, some of them get made into purposeful elements. Some of them end up with plants in them in my yard. Anyway, I give them away.
Sorry, can I interrupt you right there?
Yeah.
Can you share with students maybe what a pinch pot is and how it would differ from, say, a wheel turn vessel?
Sure. A pinch pot is where you take a piece of clay and you put it in your hand and you use absolutely no tools. And you make it the same way people have been making pots sitting in North America for the last 5,000 years. And so it's this connection to the roots of clay. It's a connection to an honoring of our heritage and where it comes from. And it teaches you what the clay is going to do that day. And also it teaches you where you're at that day. Because every time you touch a piece of clay, the clay brings something, but you bring something too. And so every single day that I work with clay, it's a dance between those two things. I don't have complete control. I have to work with what I have, and I have to work with the mood that I'm in. I have to work with, how much time I have, or whether it's raining bloody murder or whether it's dry. All those things affect what's going on with me and the clay. So my work in clay is very close to my spiritual self.
So can I ask you then, and if this compare and contrast that I'm pursuing here isn't relevant, then just tell me. But so do you feel like working with clay in a pinch pot process is more intimate than, say, using a wheel, or am I off target here?
Not necessarily. I think at first that it is, because when you're working with a wheel, it's all of the things that you've learned about clay, only now it's wet and it's spinning. So it becomes more difficult. It's really, really fun, and it's really, really hard. So it depends on, I don't think that's necessarily true. I think that working with clay when it's on the wheel, it's just a different process. And you have to know that the two processes have a little bit to do with each other, but not very much. Because one you work with it really dry, and one you work with it and it has to be wet. So if I was to use water when I'm hand building, it just makes it fall over. It just makes it collapse. So you have to learn how to smooth it and do all of those things without the water. And when it's on the wheel, you do all of those things with the water. So.
Let's see, did you say it's a spiritual experience for you? It can
Sure.
be? Yeah. I think that's really an important conversation right there for students to understand. Can you talk about a little bit maybe where you go spiritually or intellectually when you're working with clay? Like, what happens to you?
There's a lady named MC Richards, and she wrote a book called Centering. And she wrote it a long time ago. It's an old book, but I'm old, so there you go. And it's all about centering yourself, and centering with clay, and centering with poetry, and anything like that, where you have to find your true self and make your own pots. And because nobody else can make your pots. And if you start making pots that you saw out of a magazine or out of Ceramics Monthly, you're not necessarily making your pots, And if you don't make your pots, nobody else is going to do it. And I kind of feel like that's the reason I'm here. It's the reason I make art, is to make the best pots that I can make on that particular day. And I'm not saying that your pots have to be perfect, but they have to be the best of you on that day.
Okay.
And that's all you can do. And in life, I think that I kind of go the same way. I don't see as well as I used to. So all of those things, like I said, on that given day, I have to make the best pot I can. So, and sometimes you have to say, okay, well, what I was trying to do didn't work. So what can I, instead of just abandoning it, you have to be tenacious. And you have to say, okay, if that's not going to work, what will work? And it's not to say that your first idea is your only idea. There are lots of good best pots on that day. You just have to find the one that is going to happen. And so the answer to that question in my life has changed. And I think it does with everybody all the time. You know, you can not have a good day and, you know, have trouble with your car or have a fight with a friend or, you know, a husband or a kid or whatever you have in your life that's going to distract from your creative flow. And instead of saying, oh, well, I'm so upset I can't work today, I find that, you know, all I have to say about that is hogwash. Because you just need to come with who you are and then let it be part of what you are that day and make art. Just, you know, I have a neon sign in my front window that says art saves lives. And it saves my life over and over and over again. And I think right now we're finding that creativity is saving lives all over the place. It's saving people's sanity, you know. I mean, right down to just the simple thing of people today are making masks because everybody's supposed to wear one.
That's
so
right.
Everybody's looking around going, oh, how can I make a mask with what I have in my house?
Yeah.
So it's important.
Sandy, I want to thank you for taking the time and speaking with me and sharing this with art students.
And also, you know, I live out in Wishkah, and if people want to sometime this summer or this fall, you know, they can contact me and just come by and visit. Or my studio, as soon as we get over this, my studio in the summertime is open on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday, those 4 days, and to the public. And it is for usually from 10 until 4.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.